Hello, today we are going to be making a new model. So we're going to make this big cruise missile, which is the FP5 Flamingo, which is a Ukrainian cruise missile. So we're going to start, I'm going to start by going, I've got sort of a side drawing. There wasn't really many proper vector drawings on the internet. And I've also found this other reference so you can see where it's from. So we're going to just start by making this as simple as possible. We're going to start with a very small cylinder. And we're going to just turn that down to a, let's say, a 12 side. And then we'll rotate this like so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply all the transforms. And then we'll tab back into the edit mode. So I wasn't too far off, actually. Lock the y-axis out. And we'll just do that. So that pretty much is bang on right there. So what we need to do now is select this end face. And we're just going to stretch it a bit to about there. Then we're going to start extruding like so, and just neck the actual model down a bit. So might have to throw another edge loop in there, just because it looks a bit off. And then we'll just do a merge. 1 second, let me remember. Do a merge at the center, and I remember where this is. There, at center. I'm going to throw another edge loop in there, like so. And we'll just neck that out a bit. There we go. That looks a bit better. So that's that end done, and that's very simple. I think that's all that really is to it. We'll go back into the face mode. I need to, change the tool back. Set the face. And then we're going to extrude, just move this edge face. Probably to, so check our other reference image. So I'd say probably just before the fins is probably where it's gonna start needing to be necked down. So we'll just do that. Like so. Okay, this is actually quite perfect. So whether the model's wrong or whether it's just, a bit bad, but we'll just keep going anyway with this. So we'll just keep going, and then we'll get there, and then again we'll just merge at center, and there we go. We've now done the body. Very simple. So the next item on the list is to do the pulse jet, which is sat on the top here, and then we'll have a look at the fins afterwards. So again, we're going to get another cylinder. I'll rotate it 90 degrees, and then we'll just pop it here, and we'll try and hide this in the cell itself. So it's going to be a little bit more complicated. We'll do this, and we can hide it in the cell, and then we'll just extrude this again. I say extrude. Move the end, roughly to the end there, and we'll do the same this end. Now I can see that's sort of like a, yeah, so that's kind of a similar area there, and then just sort of just a taper off there. So we'll just extend it to there, and then we'll do an inset like so. Then we'll extrude it a bit there. And because that's not quite perfect, we're going to just select the edge loops on the inside, and we'll just make it a bit. Oh, that's the wrong button. So we'll select edge loops like so, and we want to just extrude it like that. There we go. That'll be fine. Now, because this isn't a perfect circle here, perfect cylinder, I'm going to throw some edge loops on this. Should really slid those. So we'll just slide that sort of here and expand it out a bit. And we'll do the same down here. Expand that out, and that pretty much seems to cover it. So looking at our other reference image, seems to be we've got a square face that kind of goes down here and it sort of necks in at the back. So we're gonna just take sort of a bit of an easy option here. We will select these faces, select these on here as well. I'll just do an E and then a Z until we click through the model. And then what we want to do is we want to select that edge loop as well as those two edges, and then seal it up like so. I might just slide that a little, because I don't think that face is pretty much, no, it's not bang on the front. So we might just have to throw another edge loop in like that. And then I think we'd have to do a knife of this. Like so. We'll actually delete this front face. And we'll just make a new face back here. And we'll select those edge loops. And I selected apparently not very well. So we'll just select these manually. Interestingly, it hasn't created that geometry there, which is a bit more of an issue. Did not do that particularly well. So what I might just do is I might just undo a load of these changes. And go with the edge loops again. No, we can't do that. It's not gonna let me select it. We will delete these vertices, these edges here, which you seem to have duplicated for some reason. And then we'll have to try and just knife this down like so. We'll do this edge like so, but we didn't get that edge apparently. So we'll just do both sides. And then we'll just drop these faces down again. We'll just bring them in line with this. And then we'll just create the new faces like so. So we're not going to worry too much about it clipping through. Helps if I click the right functions like so. And of course the other problem is now we don't have anything there, but we'll just do this. And there we go, I got our front bit of our nacelle done. Now we need to sort of focus on this rear bit, which kind of, if you look at it, it kind of goes back so far and starts necking into the center, and it ends just before that end extension here. So what we will want to do is we will want to select these two faces here. And we'll want to just extrude them all the way back. Now I'm going to take a bit of a lazy approach since missile's not going to be that detailed and we need to save on our poly count since we're at 2 of 14. I'm just going to clip it through like so. I might throw another edge loop in there. And just simply do that. So now we've got kind of our look for our missile. And that's very simple, like so. So, what else is on the missile? We have these two winglets here. So what we're going to do is we're going to build this. I also put this extended probe on here. We could do this as a sort of low poly cylinder. So what we'll do is just create another cylinder. We'll make it a 4-side. Shrink it down a load. 90, and then just make it like this. That's probably about the right length, and then we'll just scale it in the Y direction. And it doesn't really matter, this goes to the center of the actual model. I think that'll be perfectly fine for Supreme Ruler. You're not going to see that in great detail anyway. So that's the nose. So next thing to do is to make the wings. And then we can do some of this sort of detail on the top right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a plane. And what I'm going to do is to save on the poly count, I'm going to make this one big wing as such. So we're going to shrink it in the Y direction. And it's kind of probably about a third of the way along, so probably a little bit further back. And then we'll just raise this up a bit. So it's probably highest shoulder mount like that. And then we're going to try and make this roughly curved shape on their winglet itself. So how are we going to be doing this? Well, we might also have to make it a bit narrower. I'll make the wings a little bit stubbier. Yeah, something like that might be alright. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to extrude this downwards, because that will make our thickness of the wing. And then bottom of the wing we can leave sort of as a flat plane, but the top we want to subdivide. And what we're going to do is just select the two edges, and then we're going to subdivide. Select the new center edge, and I'm going to move that a bit forwards. Leave it where it is, and then taper this edge down a bit. Taper this edge down a bit as well. And there we have it. There's our simplified wing. Like so. That seems alright. You know, I might actually move that a bit forwards and then put another subdivision on that. And then we can raise that up a little bit. Create the illusion of a curve. So now that bit is done. We could intrude that a little bit. That might give it a little bit of more detail. So what we might just do is intrude like that. Extrude inwards a little bit so we can have a bit of detail. I think I'll do the same on here as well. Just so it looks like we've got a bit more detail on the model. So then the last sort of parts we've got is some of these things on the top, and we've got the actual tail fins. Now, I'm not going to model this booster, since it's most likely sort of a rocket takeoff assistant, and that would be dropped mid-flight, so I'm not going to put that on the model. I am, however, going to put these fins on. So I'm going to take the lazy approach like I did last time. I'm going to make one, and I'm going to simply do a mirror. So what we want to do is we want to make a plane. I'm going to roughly block this out. Like so, before I start moving it properly. So that's not too bad. Considering I basically eyeballed that into existence. And we'll just that looks pretty good. So now what I'll just do is I'll just make that, and I will solidify it when I remember where the solidify thing is. Solidify faces, like so. I'm just going to select linked it out a bit. So these look like they are in quarters. I probably should just go back. And then I'm going to R, I, and then minus 45, which will give us our quarters. Probably best I stick it on this face. So I want to go G, Z. like so. Well, maybe it needs to go up a bit more actually. Then we're gonna have this. I think we're gonna have this where I need to stretch it a bit, which is fine. So that doesn't look ridiculous. It's obviously disconnected. Like so. So that doesn't look too bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, select the linked, which will only select then this little fin. I'm going to then rip these faces from the model when I remember what the rip thing is. So we'll separate by selection. I'm going to go back into edit object mode. I'm going to select that. I'm going to go down to modifiers, add modifier, mirror. So it's automatically put the X on. Just make sure I mirror around this object. I'm going to also put mirroring annoyingly around that. So I'm trying to decide why that is. I've obviously done something wrong here in my selection. So potentially I could just mirror, drag these up. That might be the easy option. I think I need to set the center on that. I think it's because I've moved this object up. I need to rotate around the center. So what I'm going to just do is I'm just going to apply this, since we only need to be roughly in place. I'm going to go back into edit mode, select these two, select linked. And we're simply going to take the lazy option here, because we can. And we'll just put the winglets like that. So we're going to go back into edit mode. We're going to select the fins first, then select the cylinder, which is the actual model. Go object join, which then leaves our main model as the master model. So then we're going to tab back into edit mode, and you can see now we've got the whole thing as one model, and then we've only got a few little details we need to model on here, which is this kind of stuff on the top. So we're going to be very, very simple with this. We're just going to use two little cylinders. Gonna make them 6. And again, we're gonna shrink these down a fair amount. So don't think they are big on the model. They're not. Yeah, so probably a little bit shorter, smaller, but a lot longer. So how far did these run up to winglets? Yeah, it runs way beyond the winglets. So there we go. Just make it like that. Then we need to make it sure it's set on the model, like so. I think that's probably in about the right place. What I'm going to do, again. I'm going to separate this by selection. Go back into edit mode. Select the new cylinder. Generate a mirror. And just simply apply. Then I'm going to select our new cylinder. But the original sun, though, I should really rename this in the model. And I'm going to objects join, then tab back into edit mode. And now I've got these little details on the model. I might have it just, yeah, I'm going to have to add some faces. Probably should have added some faces originally, but oh well. And simply have it taper downwards, like so. Make it a bit longer. Yeah, so that's now like that. Yeah. Okay. Probably maybe the winglet's a bit long as well. I think the wing's a bit long. Looking at it, so what I'll just do is just push some of these faces back, like so. Okay. And yeah, I probably should have moved those back as well. I've pressed the wrong button yet again. I'll eventually get good at this. At some point, maybe. But today is not that day. Just push these back a bit. Like so. That looks a lot better. There's only one bit remaining, which I might just make out of a cube, put some edge loops on it, and then trim it like that. Yeah, that's probably the thing to do. Get a plane, shrink it down. Yeah, it's not that long. It's probably not much longer than that, to be honest. And then we'll just subdivide that lengthways, and we'll bend the edges down. Like so. That gives the illusion of the model. Just do these faces as well. So I think I'm fairly happy with this model now. There's not really a lot to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it all. I'm going to press U. And then I'm going to do a smart UV unwrap. I'm too lazy to do it by hand. I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm going to put a margin of 0.01 in here. So when I open the UV map, you can see it's pretty plain right here. Might put a bit more. That gap will probably be fine. I'm going to create a new image, and we'll just save it as a Flamingo. If I could spell properly, and we'll just leave it black for now. We're going to create a new material for this, so we'll need that. We're going to go down to specular, and we're just going to set it to 0, which means it won't be giving off light. So if we were to put this into render mode, you'll see it's just a plain white missile. So what we want to do is we want to save this as flamingo.png. We'll convert it to DDS later because It does not support saving as DDS in Blender for some reason. I'm just going to repoint this as an image texture. And point it to the Flamingo. Like so. But now we could start texture painting. So you can see that the missile's now black. And we want a slightly offset blue, in my opinion. This is obviously a bit of a shaded blue. Yeah, it's a bit grey. So very simply, it would probably have been best to have actually done this all in this one colour, as it's the bulk of the missile. But yeah, and add the detail on after. So what we're just going to do, we're just going to paint it. We're also going to have the X, Y, and Z on. Like so, just to save a bit of time. Actually, we could have just selected everything, couldn't we? And then the wings won't paint. I've had this in Blender. I don't know why it doesn't want to randomly paint stuff. But if you can tell me, I'd be very, very grateful for your time. And we'll just select these faces like so, and we'll just do a fill. Simply because actually we could select the whole thing. And we could actually just do a paint. That would simply paint. But we obviously don't want to just leave it plain because that's boring. I think that blue, yeah, it looks alright actually. So what we want to actually do is add some of these grey bits on. It's like that grey would be quite nice to put on the back here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go select the faces. So we'll select. Yeah, I figured it would do that. Select the outer housing here for the engine. And we'll just do a simple fill on this. So we'll select the edge faces. And some of these inner faces as well. And we'll paint that as well. Now the inner, we're going to paint a different colour. As this will be in flight, you can have a bit of an orange flame. So what we'll just do is we'll paint that colour. Then we'll select this face. And we'll just pick an orangey-ish colour. Like this. Then again, we need to get this grey that we used here. We actually want to sample it off here because it actually uses the wrong colours if you sample it off there. As it uses the shaded colour, so you want to always, if you're resampling, so this colour I've used here, if I sample it off there, it'll take a shaded colour. If I use this, it'll actually use the colour you painted it in. That's just worth bearing in mind if you're painting like this. So I'm just going to select the front of this. Probably is a more efficient way of selecting these, but yeah. So I'm a bit of a noob when it comes to Blender. We'll have to paint on the rest manually, which will be a different way of doing it. So what you can do is, instead of having brush, you can, not brush, stroke, turn it to a line. What you can do is you can select these faces. And to be fair, I think, is that going to be too far back? No, we want to do it right on the edge. Select these faces like so. Put it in this view. Grab the brush. Not like this. And when I remember how to do this, space, no, I was supposed to set it in line. We can paint it like that. It's a bit rough, but it looks decent. So I'm gonna leave it at that, I think, with this. So what I'll just do is I'll just go and render the image. So this doesn't look too bad, actually. We'll put some more detail on in a future episode, because I think I'm going to leave it at that for now. We've got a very simple texture, we've got a very simple model. So if you have any questions or suggestions for models you'd like to see in Supreme Ruler, leave a comment, leave a like as always, and feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.